I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name's Tony. Sobriety date's April 8, 1989. Welcome to Keystone Big Book Study Workshop of the Program of Recovery. How we open this meeting, since we're farther along here, we're going to open with, we want to raise favorite prayers here. We're going to do the third step prayer. So, what do we need what's the basis for a good life? God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those that would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Right on. So for those that are joining us, we're kind of plugging along here. We kind of looked at 6 and 7 last week. And we try to stick to the book as best we can without the additives. You know, a lot of people like to add their spin or add what they think it says or add what somebody else taught them. We try to stick to what the book says, right? So we're not very popular all the time, right? So we stick to what it says. So when we're looking at this thing, last week we looked at page 76. And wording is very important, since they're going to tell us precisely how they had recovered. And which is really cool here is they've switched the conversation to you to the collective. Now they're talking, all of us are in this thing because we sealed the deal with the fifth step. So why don't we just start reading? Let's start reading. Let's do the seventh step. Why not? When ready, we said something like this. After we assess the things that were still blocking us off, still causing us problems that we're carrying forward, and we're willing to have these things removed, when ready.
Okay, recovered alcoholic. My name's Katie. When ready, we say something like this. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding.
Grant me strength. So that goes right into step 11. After sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. So all this stuff brings us home, and it'll bring us into 11 here shortly. So what now? Now we need more action. You notice the two previous steps didn't talk about action. They talk about preparation. We're just preparing ourselves and reconfirming. So the action steps say action in front of it, and the preparation steps prepare us for the next step. Right? It's that's why back when it first started, there was 6 steps. Right? And so they expanded them out so they'd be more palatable for people like us. So we'd have more stuff to work on. No. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Go ahead.
Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9.
So ready? Let's look at. Let's not rush out based on self-will and try to fix all the amends that we think we should fix based on self. You know, like the important amends. I want to make amends to maybe my ex or maybe my ex-employer. Self-based interest amends, right? I know nobody's ever done that stuff here, but, you know, it's kind of one of those things, right? So let's look at steps 8 and 9. We're looking at it. You know what it means to look at it? No touchy. Look. We're looking. We're preparing, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal.
It was drastic, right? We have that list of all those people. We see what's the nature of what propelled us to, initiate the harms with these people and with us. It's kind of interesting, eh? Okay, go ahead.
Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past.
So hold on.
Yep.
So what they're talking about, we look at 8 and 9, and then when we're finished, we prepare, then we go out. right? We're not going out right now before we know what we're doing. We're not stopping and going, okay, we're going out and start making these amends. It's a preparation to get us ready, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves.
So that's interesting, right? What they talk about here, an effort to run on self-will and run the show ourselves. So we got a good indication what that looks like from the fourth step, and we got a confirmation of that in the fifth step. So we need a way of gauging where self is not taking over again, right? We need a way to kind of see that we're not running the show, right? That we're not causing more damage based on self-based ideas, right? We need, like in Bill's story, he talked about being in council with something greater than him, right? We've seen all these things were in place before he went out and started making amends and recreating his life, right? So he was plagued with depression and self-pity and resentment for over a year and a half. But he would initiate the recipe to create a change sufficient enough for him to move past the places where he was unable to before. Part of that the basis of that was a power greater than himself, that connection, and working with others. What would save the day, right? So we're going to see something here that a lot of places don't teach. Mostly that idea comes from treatment center based ideas or people who's just done the 12 and 12 and not the program of recovery. We got to see what the basis is for us to begin this process, right? Go ahead.
We attempt to sweep away the debris which is accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol.
And what would be the challenge here? Because we're feeling better and we're mistaken that for getting better. Right, we delude ourselves and believe, I think I'm getting this thing now because I'm feeling way more better. The obsession has left. I don't think about it anymore. I'm reading page 417 every day. Life's good. Life's fantastic. Well, that's not the deal, right? The deal is you can't trust you with this illness that we can't see, feel, and touch. Somewhere along the line, we're hoping that we get restored to sanity, right? The feeling that the drink problem has been solved, the feeling of it doesn't mean necessarily it has been, right? So that's why when we get into reading their experience, what we're going to talk about here shortly, we see that it's a continuation of what we learned as the foundation to access power, to overcome self, to go take care of these things that we need to take care of, and then reminding ourselves why we need to do it, right? Because we're on a life and death errand here. Right, I need to trust the process, not trust my thinking. Is the work solid so far? Okay, can I stand on it? Can I build on it? The spiritual structure, can I move forward? Right? Do I have the elements of the recipe of the release of the bondage of self and overcoming my difficulties? Do I have the ability to move past my thinking, where my thinking is not in control of me, where now I'm starting to control my thinking, my emotions, and the direction I'm heading in, right? The bondage of self, right? Okay, go ahead.
Probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel...
Okay, so we're looking over the list. We're sorting this stuff out. We're kind of sorting out, what's the financial stuff, what's the stuff that get me and my family in trouble, what's the stuff that I gotta take kind of caution when going out there and making amends. What should I make amends with? What should I seek counsel with? What should, really, I need to prepare myself where I'm not causing more damage and more harm. Right? But I need, hopefully counsel with another human being that's been through this. But mostly our greatest asset is going to be step 11, is prayer, to sort out these things, right? Because I don't want to be driven by instincts again, causing more problems, right? And so I need to figure out what's the basis of why I'm going to do all these things. a lot of people talk about, it's not about self anymore, right? So they're going to tell us what this is all about here shortly, right? So in the fourth step, the fear talked about, right? It talked about a real, to align ourselves with God, right? Our real purpose is to play the role He assigns. I've had quite the day working, so trying to get my brain caught up with my. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, probably there are still some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach.
So we're going to them on a spiritual basis. That's interesting. Right, on a spiritual basis. Right?
That's new.
Pardon?
That's new.
Yeah.
For us.
On a spiritual basis. Because what is the whole idea? We just did the third step prayer, right? Relieve me of the difficulties of self and the bondage, that I may talk about thy power, thy love, and thy way of life, right? The experiencing of the release of these things that used to cripple me by getting access to power. So the message is getting access to power, right? You're not going to go talk to them about the steps you do every day. You're going to, what's created this change and why you're doing this, right? Is it very informative that you were afflicted with an illness, you're living on a spiritual basis? A part of this to seal the deal is I need to clear up all this stuff, right? Because if I don't just clear up all this stuff, I'm going to be returning to drinking, and I don't know when that's going to happen. So the only thing as security that I have is those that went before me said I need to continue, right? Because I can't trust me with this. Go ahead.
We might, on our first approach, we might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order, but this is not an end to itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us.
So our real purpose is to fit. You want to underline, fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. So we're moving into second stage recovery, where it's not, the focal point isn't about us anymore. It's how I could be of service. How could I be helpful to these people that I'm going to go make amends to? How could I be a demonstration of this way of life that's been freely given to me? Right? How can I go see, is there something that maybe a demonstration of my new life might help somebody in their circle? Right? Go ahead.
It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce we have gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to be branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message. But our man is sure to be impressed with
That's interesting, eh? To carry a beneficial message. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be a maximum service to God and the people around us. We're a demonstration of this power. We're not a demonstration of steps. Right? We're not going to tell them, here's these 12 steps. No, I got access to this power. And just like Bill with Ebby, they seen the change. Right? Bill was perplexed by this change. Most people who know us, when this change is coming over us, when they see us, they're going to see there's something different about us. There's a big difference between going around trying to convince people how much you changed and them seeing how much you changed. If you're the only one experiencing the promises, then FYI, you're not really experiencing them. Because in the spiritual appendix, they talk about it. The people around us will be more aware of the change than we are, right? And when we read these promises that we'll suddenly realize that God is doing. So somewhere along the line, everybody around us is more aware of the change than we are. Same like our alcoholism. Everybody around us was more aware of our drinking and inability to control it and behave ourselves and drink without consequence. We were the last ones to know. And that's the same kind of effort or same kind of approach here. Go ahead.
But our man is sure to be impressed with the sincere desire to set right the wrong. He is going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries.
Which is a problem for a lot of us. We'd rather talk endlessly about it to anybody who listens, especially family. Anybody gets sober fit a bit and now you're starting to work on your family. Oh my God. Leave them alone. Right, go ahead.
We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. And maybe he has done us more harm than we have done him. And though we may have acquired a better attitude towards him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us.
Yeah, and our faults is, like based on my fear and stuff, selfish, inconsiderate, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, right? These were the vehicles that caused the problems based on my instincts that invited you or me to this situation, right? I wish I would have handled it differently, right? And then you talk about how can I correct this thing, right? So if it's about gossiping about people, what would you think the correction would be? To stop gossiping about people. Mm-hmm. How do you know if you're a gossip? People are telling you about other people. Right? I remember going to my sponsor once. I said, "This guy's talking about me." He says, "How do you know that?" Because this guy told me. Right? So I just kind of, we cause our own pain and agony sometimes, and how we talk to ourselves is quite interesting. So, go ahead.
We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past.
Well, that's interesting, eh? Restrain a tongue, right? Because you get in those situations, and if you're not spiritually based, then your instincts are being threatened, right? You don't have the ability to override the shift that's starting to happen inside of you. You're not able to calm that down. So you better have a recipe to be able to incorporate, right, access to these things. So we see that this is one of the challenges we may have. And so the basis is my relationship with a power greater than myself, so instincts don't take over again where I'm having to make amends for an amend. Right? Anybody ever have to make an amend for amend? It starts off really good, then all hell breaks loose, right? Okay. That's self showing up again unsupervised, right? So we need to be supervised. We need that connection, right? Otherwise, it's an instinct-based thing. Because when you start arguing in your head what the other person is saying or done, you've just lost the battle. You've lost. It's done. It has you. Right? Okay?
But it really feels like you're winning in the moment.
Yeah. I think they covered that in the fourth, right?
All right. Simply we tell him that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so. Never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own.
Somebody just said, "What an order." They can't go through with it. Go ahead.
If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. In 9 cases out of 10, the unexpected happens. Sometimes the man we are calling upon admits his own faults, so feuds of years standing melt away in an hour. Rarely do we fail to make satisfactory progress. Our former enemies sometimes praise what we are doing and wish us well. Occasionally, they will offer assistance. It should not matter, however, if someone does throw us out of his office. We have made our demonstration, done our part. It's water over the dam.
So now they go through a lot of different things that may be on your list of amends. And so they'll cover and give you some of their insight or some of their experience, right? Most alcoholics owe money. Perhaps we have committed a crime or an offense. You read through those as you're going through your list. You don't have to go through it in this order, right? When you're challenged with these things, you kind of have some input, right? Maybe we're divorced, and they talk about relationships here. Then they talk about things that we have done that's not so great. And then before taking on page 80, we're going to read this. This is kind of interesting. No, we're not. Page 80. Before taking drastic actions, any actions, before taking drastic actions, right? Okay? Which?
Yep. Before taking drastic action which might implicate other people, we secure their consent. If we have obtained permission, have consulted with others, ask God to help, and the drastic step is indicated, we must not shrink.
So see, God's involved in the stuff. Somewhere, I don't know where the idea came from that we do our 9s, and when we're done our 9s, we go into 10, and then we're done 10, then we go into 11, and then we do 12. The steps are in order for a reason. We go through the process, but implementing them is all at the same time. It's not compartmentalized, right? We need to know how to access this thing where we could get this intuitiveness or this sixth sense where we could be in counsel with something other than ourselves to take the corrective right moves. The book is laid out that way. So I don't know where people get the idea that you do your 9s first and 10. The book doesn't support that idea, right? And we'll show you where it kind of reiterates that. So here we're asking God for help, right? And so as we go through this, they talk about here. Let's go to page 82.
Okay.
Okay, so here, perhaps there are some cases where the utmost, they're talking about family, relationships, infidelity, and all that other stuff here. So go ahead.
Perhaps there are some cases where the utmost frankness is demanded. No outsider can appraise such an intimate situation. It may be that both will decide that the way of good sense and loving kindness is to let bygones be bygones. Each might pray about it.
So there you go. Pray about it. Right? So again, it's always referring to step 11 through the 9-step process. Right? Pray about it. Right? Praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that. When in doubt, pause, pray. And we're going to get into that in a second. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Kept it always in sight that we are dealing with that most terrible human emotion, jealousy. Good generalship may decide that the problem be attacked on the flank rather than risk a face-to-face combat. If we have no such complication, there is plenty we should do at home. Sometimes we hear an alcoholic say that the only thing he needs to do is keep sober. Certainly he must keep sober, for there will be no home if he doesn't. But he is yet a long way from making good to the wife or parents whom for years he has so shockingly treated. Passing all understanding is the patience mothers and wives have had with alcoholics. Had this not been so, many of us would have no homes today, would perhaps be dead. Definitely. The alcoholic is like a tornado, roaring his way through the lives of others. Hearts are broken, sweet relationships are dead. Affections have been uprooted. Selfish and inconsiderate habits have kept the home in turmoil. We feel a man is unthinking when he says that sobriety is enough. He is like the farmer who came out of the cyclone cellar to find his home ruined. To his wife he remarked, "Don't see anything the matter here, Ma. Ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?"
Yeah. Maladjusted, full flavor from reality, and downright mental defectives.
Yeah.
Who?
It's for a month.
Who? Right. Hey, honey, what's your stuff doing all over there? No, go ahead. Okay.
Yes, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful
A
mumbling.
long period, not 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Remember, Bill talked about a year and a half. A long period of reconstruction lie ahead, right? Which is not our strong suit, because now that we're sober a week, everybody should be giving us a cake, celebrating, and forget the past and blah, 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 right?
Yeah. Are you guys still mad? But this is the importance. This is why when people say, I'm doing a living amends. Well, that's just implied. You got to stay sober. The book just tells us that. That's part of this process. But there's a lot more that needs to be done on top of that. Just staying sober isn't. You're not even at level playing ground yet.
Yeah. Here's how most of us do it.
Okay. We must take the lead. Sorry. Yes, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. A remorseful mumbling that we are sorry won't fit the bill.
How many times, eh? How many times, right? So they've heard it all from us, especially people close to you. How many times, right? They think you're trying to, every time you try to make amends to them now, they think you're trying to hit them up for money.
But this time is different.
This time is different. You got a 20? Can I borrow your car? Can I have a place to live? Can you help me out, right?
Yeah. We ought to sit down with the family and frankly analyze the past as we now see it.
That's important, as we now see, because how we seen it before, we're a victim of, who wouldn't have these problems with these people, right? Now we see why they have these problems with this person, right? My mom used to say, we didn't need the police before you showed up. I always wonder what she meant by that. Insensitive. Go ahead.
Being very careful not to criticize them. Their defects may be glaring, but the chances are that our own actions are partly responsible.
And what would the defect be? Resentment, fear, the harms, the conduct, all that stuff, right? Because they're just bracing themselves for impact. Right? What's the story? Yeah, we know that they know the story. They haven't had a chance to have a new story. You may feel different. You may have a different attitude and outlook. There may be something happening in your life, but it's not happening in their life yet. They're still very, it's like a dog that's bit you 2 or 3 times, right? Has the muzzle on, it's gone through some training. Okay, I think we could take the muzzle off. Everybody around is going to say, no. I think we should leave it on for a little while. Feed the dog soup, but the muzzle stays on, right? So the removal of it, think about that. You remove the muzzle and it's kind of like, everyone's kind of like anticipating, right? Okay.
Yeah. I bet my family wish they knew there was a muzzle option. If they knew there was a muzzle option, I would be still muzzled.
Yeah.
All right. So their defects may be glaring, but chances are our own actions are partly responsible. So we clean house with the family, asking each morning in meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love.
So that's step 11 again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This whole thing is about our relationship with a power greater than yourself. Why would you wait in 9 before engaging in 11? You need an 11 and 12 to do your 9s. Because if you don't have 11 and 12 as you're doing your 9s, then you're showing up unsupervised and you won't be able to manage the emotional turmoil that may resurface itself. The defect, the character, right, from how you used to look at it, and the scarring from past events will start to raise its ugly head as you're engaged with these people. If you don't have the pause or the ability to step back from it or alter or halt what's happening and revisit it later, then you're just recreating the same toxic environment that you're hopefully trying to change. Mm-hmm. So that's where step 6 stuff shows up here, right? Especially with family. you're trying to demonstrate something new, but there's the way how you used to look at it, and now there's the new way of looking at it. In order to stay with the new way of looking at it, you have to be spiritually charged.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not spiritually charged, then the instincts take over and the bondage and difficulties resurface itself. That's why all the way through here on step 7 talks about power to overcome self, right? To remove the things that are blocking me in the moment, right? So I can be successful. And that's the same with this. If I don't have access to power, then I'm left with self. There's no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. So I need to find a way of navigating through all this where I don't show up and cause more problems, and the ability to, it's like I remember I used to tell, look, I forgive you. Look, here's all the stuff I forgive you for. Right?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know what the participate has requested to start the meeting summary. So there you go. Okay, let's get into this.
All right. Yeah, if you've ever had to make amends for the amends you were trying to make, you know you've gone in alone without the step 11. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. Unless one's family expresses a desire to live upon spiritual principles, we think we ought not to urge them. We should not talk incessantly to them about spiritual matters. They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words.
100%. I've been sober long enough where I've watched sponsees and people taking their cakes, and the family starts incorporating these principles because they've seen the change happen in their loved one, right? A demonstration, and then they start applying this. My wife's a normie, and she's implemented a lot of this stuff in the big book as a part of her routine and daily stuff like that, stuff part of the prayer and meditation. No, it's universal principles, but the way we put them together seems to be very beneficial for people who think the way we think. Go ahead.
They will change in time. Our behavior will convince them more than our words. We must remember that 10 or 20 years of drunkenness would make a skeptic out of anyone. There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves that we would right them if we could. Some people
and this is important. One of the things my sponsor taught me was when I make my amends, I don't have to relive it all the time and revisit it, relive it, and go over it over and over. I have a 3-month rule. If it's been more than 3 months and we've talked about it, we dealt with it, I don't revisit it anymore. Well, my family is a little different. My mom will bring up stuff from the past because she's still healing from it. And she finds a safe place to be able to say things that I've caused severe scarring and damage. So is she, but I don't bring that up because I've healed from that. So I'm able to listen to her with an ear of understanding that she's still carrying a pain associated with this event. So I'm helping her walk through that where she no longer carries that. And like I'm coming up to 37 years sober. I just went back to my mom's 88th birthday, and this was the first visit I had where she never brought up nothing from the past. Nothing. There's stuff that we'd be driving along, she'd bring up something that I said or did when I was 16 I seen how that would cause a lot of emotional harm and damage. And then when she brings it up, I say, I must have been tough. That wasn't my intent. I'm sorry I wasn't too well back then. Right? I was afflicted with alcoholism and given the situation, I would never say that or do that again. So I love you. Right? And then move on. I just move on. Don't take the trap, don't take the bait, and allow them healing. And that's what we'll find with most people is they're still carrying some hurt, which is energy tied to that event. And what a lot of people do, well, is it a safe place for them to express their ill feelings or hurt? And it's like a release. It may sound like an attack, but it's a release of the energy they're carrying. And if you're in a good spiritual place, you could kind of hear it, right? And apologize and move on from that and allow them healing. Right? It's really weird because remember what we're doing is we're trusting and relying on God now. So there'll be situations that kind of, it'll be mind-boggling. I think step 9 was the most mind-boggling series of events where I watched God show up in my life that re-strengthened my relationship with God, to realize that my understanding of the things that are happening, there's a greater understanding happening. This is going to be cool when we get into this. I won't ruin a surprise. Go ahead.
There may be some wrongs we can never fully right. We don't worry about them if we can honestly say to ourselves if we would right them if we could. Some people cannot be seen. We send them an honest letter.
You hear people say, you send them a letter. And sometimes if people aren't around anymore, you write a letter and have a moment and go down by the water and read it and have a ceremony of releasing and letting go. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I've done that where people, places and things have wrote a letter and kind of with a heartfelt kind of amends and then burnt it and released it and let it go, right?
Mm-hmm. And there may be a valid reason for postponement in some cases, but we don't delay if it can be avoided. We should be sensible, tactful, considerate, and humble without being servile or scraping.
So you see, they're doing a summary here of the amends process. There's some of this, some of that. You're in counsel with something greater than you. You have somebody that's walked you through a process. Now we have a fellowship of people that's been through it or is going through it, right? They share experience, strength, and hope. And they give us ideas on how they did it, which is the previous kind of pages talk about some of the challenges they had. But our greatest asset here now is counsel with something greater than ourselves and our spiritual advisor on how to approach this and have a different view of this stuff, right? So it's pretty good. So this is a summary of the amends process. Go ahead.
Okay. Without being servile or scraping. As God's people, we stand on our feet and we don't crawl before anyone. If we are painstaking about this phase in our development...
What phase? The amends process. We haven't started yet, right? We're still reading. Have we started yet?
We're still looking at it.
We're still looking at it. We're reading through. It's very important. We're reading through their experience that they're passing on to us on directions and tidbits on how to incorporate this thing. They've covered most of the areas that we have challenges with. And they're saying if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, right, they're going to give us our experience in regards to their process. Does that kind of make sense? Because how would I be able to see these things? I haven't done any amends yet. I like to be amazed before I'm halfway through. Halfway through what? 90 meetings in 90 days, so about 45 meetings, I should be amazed. No, they're talking about, right, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, walking with purpose, right? Not in pain. I misunderstood that. Painstaking to walk with purpose. Oh, I was in pain. Right? No, that's not what they're talking about. Go ahead.
If we're painstaking about this phase in our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through.
Halfway through the amends process, which shouldn't take years. It should be within a couple months.
Yeah.
Which ties in with the spiritual appendix in the back of the book. What usually takes years of self-discipline, right, will be accomplished in a few months of application of these spiritual principles, right? It usually takes place in a few months, could seldom have been brought about by years of self-discipline. Why? Because we can't go years without drinking. So we need to have this psychic change or spiritual experience. This is the recipe to obtain it, because if we can go years, we would wait. That's why they revisited the contract. Remember, it was agreed upon in the beginning that we'd be willing to go to any lengths to overcome alcoholism, right?
Yeah. We will be amazed before we're halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace.
Now that's pretty cool. So if you're taking care of all these things that used to eat your lunch, you're making amends and there's no more warrants for your arrest. You're starting to pay some money back. There's nobody looking for you anymore. Right? Your conduct is getting in alignment where you're not causing yourself harm or the people around you harm. Right? You're not stealing from work anymore, hopefully. You know what I mean? Like there's some things that are getting in line where you're not causing yourself pain, anguish, and anxiety anymore by the entrapments that happen within your mind by undealt with or unresolved things in your life. You're resolving these things. Right? Which is pretty cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
So intuitively, there's something else at work in our lives. Bill talked about that. He was to check his newfound thinking with the new God consciousness within. There's something else governing us now. We're not alone, right? Step 1, we were alone. Step 11, we're no longer alone, right? We become pillars of the spiritual arch that we get access to. Step 1, we have no access to that. We're left to our own demises, right? And an alcoholic death. It says now it doesn't have to be that way, right? So
our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us.
What used to baffle us? Everything. Me and Ray were joking about that earlier, where you hear people say, oh, God doesn't do for us what we can do for ourselves. Who determines that? I can do this. God, you have that. God, you have this. God, you have that. Step 7's right. The confirmation of our commitment is have all of me, good and bad, because I can't trust how I manipulate myself into causing myself problems based on good ideas. I owe amends now. Right? I can't trust me with me. But I want to have a different basis of thinking and development. I seem to be doing pretty good. Right? I know intuitively when that's not a good move, Tony.
Yeah.
And anybody? I should have listened. Okay, go ahead.
The voice gets louder and louder.
Yeah.
We will suddenly realize God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves.
So that's indicating there's a relationship happening. Somewhere along the line, halfway through these amends or somewhere along the line, I'll wake up to the fact of, my God, right? Like I'm experiencing something that I never thought I experienced before. I will be amazed by the level of life that I'm living and how these amends and these situations came about beyond my comprehension. It was like when I was doing 11, I remember I was doing, when I say watch how God works, is kind of like some of the amends I didn't know how I was going to handle them. So some of the people in the fellowship would say, oh, you're going to go back, make amends to your family in Quebec. So I'd take this, go right across Canada, because I still had some warrants at that time. Didn't quite deal with them. But I was going back to take care of some family stuff. So they said, when you take the bus, right, sit in the front of the bus. Right? And when you stop at these different locations, these bus for transfers, ask if there's any friends of Bill W. in the bus depot. Right? This is before cell phones and pagers, right? This is not before pagers, but before cell phones, right? And so I'd ask any friends of Bill W. and there's a contract on page 63 where God says he'll look after all my needs if I keep close to him and perform his work well. So as I'm approaching the last part of the journey of going to go see my family in Quebec on my mom's side, were French, and so I remember sitting on the bus talking to God. I said, God, you said you'd look after me. I said, I'm not feeling it. This is the last part of the trip and I'm alone here. You said that you'd give me all that I need in order to be successful. I'm not feeling this. So I'm sitting in the front of the bus and I'm getting more agitated and more a little physically animated with talking to God. And I have the headphones on. I'm listening to cassette tape on the grapevine, step 11, letting go, and step 3, I'm not being successful here. And I'm getting more at it. So this lady gives me a little nudge beside me. She goes, should I take my headphones off? She goes, you okay? I said, this is the last part of, I'm about 20 minutes away from seeing my family that I haven't seen in a long time. Going to go make this amends. They're not really that happy about me. But I'm going to go make this thing called amends and kind of set my life in order. She goes, oh, yeah, I had to do that. She says, I'm a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous for the last 20 years. How do you explain something like that, right? So the ability when I'm spiritually kind of connected is to see how God's working in my life. If I'm not connected, I can't see how God's working in my life because I'm too fear-based. So, and that's all the way through. My 9s are like that. That's just one indication of many, many, many things. So step 9 was the foundation of the application. 11, securing my relationship with something greater than me that kind of makes me realize that God's not going to drop me on my head, right?
Very cool. Very cool. God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
Damn right they are. Damn right. When you're reading them, like, are you kidding? I'm going to experience all these because I'm just reading it. And those who put this together are writing about their experience. I'm still having all these conversations and argument in my head about all these people, places, and things. I'm looking at penitentiary time. What do you mean, new happiness and new freedom? Like, it doesn't look like bail's happening for a long time. Like, I got problems, right? Are these extravagant promises? Hell yeah, right? Hell yeah. Come on, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what George and all these guys who 12-stepped me through the Big Book workshop like this, 37 years ago, I thought they were a little cuckoo. What they were talking about, this new freedom, new happiness, and how they gained their position in society, how they recovered. It sounded far-fetched from where I was looking from, and where they were, it looked like a long way.
Yeah.
I'm unemployable, right? I'm getting kicked out of restaurants sober. I'm getting kicked out of roundups for almost punching out the chairperson. Like, I'm still nuts. I'm still cheese and cracker on the same plate, but they haven't located each other yet, right? At least they're in the same facility. Like, I'm still nuts. Like, there's a lot of damage there. I know it's hard to believe looking at me now, but I mean, back then, and you're saying I'm going to have this new freedom and new happiness? And this is what they said.
Yeah. Are these extravagant promises? We think not.
That's what they said. You got all these new people who haven't even started the steps. They're already chanting. We think not. You don't think. But anyways, move on.
That's funny. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
And work for them, being maximum service to God and the people around us, clearing up the wreckage of our past. This is their summary based on... So people say, these are the 9-step promises. No, this is their overview through the incorporation of all the steps, not just 9 of them. Because if I could get this from 9 steps, guess how many steps I'm doing?
Yeah. 9.
9. Right? So we got to be clear.
I'm going to try to do 8.5 and get the 9.
That's why they say he made a beginning, but failed to enlarge in his spiritual life. So he did his 5, got feeling good, and that's as far as he went. Yeah. And he was drunk within rapid succession. Remember that guy earlier in the book here? So we just finished their experience through their process, which we call the 9-step promises, which it doesn't say here. It's read in step 9, but it's an overview. That's like saying, reading step 2 in the spiritual appendix. Oh, the spiritual appendix is happening because I'm reading it. Isn't it? Like, we're not writing a cookie factory, eh? Oh, look, it must be happening. I'm reading it. It's not that kind of magazine. Okay, go ahead.
This thought brings us to step 10.
This thought, not this group of actions.
Mm-hmm.
This thought brings us to step 10. What? It'll always materialize if we work for him, right? This experience, the suddenly realizing that God's doing for us what we could not do for ourselves, meaning creating the experience that I heard the people before me talk about, that I can't create on my own power, right? So I see it's obtainable. If I keep doing what they're talking about, I'll experience what they're talking about. Just because I'm reading it here doesn't mean I'm experiencing it, but I'm getting prepared to keep moving forward. I'm getting a recipe on how to do that. This thought brings us to step 10. And now they're going to give us an overview.
Yeah, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we clean up the past.
Yeah, this way of living as we cleaned up the past.
Yeah.
We continue. There's no break. There's no, you know what I mean? Like, there's no one of those rest areas. I've been working so hard. The drama. No, you've just been reading. Like, you just read. It's not like 3 years later, okay, I'm ready to move on. No, I've just finished 7.
Yeah.
I'm reading through. Let's look at 8 and 9. Here's their experience in the promises. This thought brings us to step 10. It will always materialize if we work for them. Okay, I get it. Continue to do what I didn't. So, 4 and 5, the principles of 4 and 5, right? Mastering resentment, overcoming fear, lining my conduct, watching out for harms, right? This is the recipe that becomes a working part of the mind, which is the foundation for 11. But go ahead. I digressed.
Okay. We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the spirit.
When? When did we do that? When did we enter the world of the spirit?
Now, as we go through this.
Step 5.
Yeah.
We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. It's the experience, not the knowledge. It's like some people think, oh, is it step 3? Is it step 2? Well, if I get a girl's phone number, I don't know if it's the right phone number yet. I may be excited about it, but I need to go through phoning it to find out if she actually answers.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not her husband. Right? You need to do the investigation, right? Which is 4, right? Is the whole idea that I need to cultivate and develop this relationship, which goes back to step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Any process that eliminates the idea of incorporating this power or seeking this power is not our idea. You've gone treatment center-based recovery again. Self-focused on self. So here they're going to remind us, remember, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us. We just finished 6 and 7, yes? We just read through 8 and 9, yes? We talked about their experience, yes? This thought brings us to step 10, right? Continue to do everything you did to get you here and clear up that stuff, right? But that's not it. Otherwise, right now they shift the focus again. So it's really half a paragraph about you concentrating on you. But it's not concentrating on you. It's watching out for the blocks that cut me off from this power, right? Which was the purpose of 4. I know what those things are now. The emotional deformities that arise. Okay, go ahead. Our next
function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness.
Of what? Of the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
That's our next function. That's the first time they've said that. Right? We've completed step 7. Let's look at 8 and 9. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be maximum service to God and the people around us. We looked at 8 and 9 through there. They talked about meditation, prayer, and counsel. So here they're saying, right, we've just entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness of what? Of this relationship in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a lot. Okay, go ahead. This
is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear.
Where self takes over again, that blocks us off from the sunlight of the Spirit, right? And we're in trouble. So here, there's continue to watch for these things. Didn't say work on them, did they?
No, watch.
Watch. It's like when you drive your car, you watch for pedestrians and potholes, right? It's like you now know how to drive your spiritual vehicle. You look through the front window and you put all the principles together and allowing you to be successfully on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them.
That's interesting. That's what we learned in the 4th step.
Yeah.
Right? We ask God to take... So we acknowledge that something's happening. My instincts are starting... There's an emotional shift starting to happen here. We ask God to remove them. We shift our focus, tap in through the keystone, right into the spiritual entity which is a part of it. So we move from an instinct-based reaction to a spiritual base by incorporating asking God, right? So there's a shift. Okay, what do we ask?
We ask God at once to remove them. We discuss with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone.
That's the recipe, right?
Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
Why are they talking about helping people? We're not at step 12 yet. Because it's an overview. It's something that we need to incorporate. This needs to be a working part of the mind. Watch out for these things when they come up, right? Defensive driving means bring God into it, right? If it's causing me still, probably talk with another human being about it, seeing how the bondage and difficulties are solved. And if it's still something going on, go find someone to help. Where did we hear that from? Bill. What was saved today? Go home and write about this. Go find 15 people to talk about it with. Go to a meeting and talk about acceptance for a whole week. Like, you know, like go find someone to work with. Huh? Yeah.
Just go help somebody. Yeah. Nobody likes that answer. What do you mean?
Yeah,
Can I go?
Go find a new partner. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Love and tolerance of others is our code. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned.
And people think, by this time, what? By the time we reach step 10, sanity will have returned? Follow the bouncing ball. I said, if we're painstaking about this phase of our development, the spiritual appendix says what usually takes place in a few months. If we're painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. So somewhere along the process, this malady, this condition that we can't see, feel, and touch, that's lying dormant within our psyche, gets removed. I don't know when it gets removed, but I know now for some reason, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm having a different experience. Something is different. Right? I don't know when it gets removed, and I don't know when it comes back. So that's why they say we need to be diligent about this phase of our development. So as you can see, they're talking about our relationship here and growing in understanding and development. It's a transition, an overview of their experience. They're talking about their experience going through this process. They're not saying these are the step 10 promises. They're saying this is what we could expect if we incorporate these in all our affairs. Do a deep dive right into this thing. Page 84. No messing around here tonight, folks. No messing around. So we're going to do no additives. We're going to stick right with the book, okay? So it might be a little jarring for some of the people, but we're just going to read what it says, right? And we'll go with their collective experience. So we kind of left off with this thought brings us to step 10, meaning it's a continuation of their experience having gone through the process as they made their amends and the transition in the spiritual way of living, which they talked about in the spiritual appendix. What usually takes place in a few months could seldom have been brought about by years of self-discipline. right? We know why we can't go years, because we're afflicted with an illness. So we need a solution for this illness. As long as this illness is present, we will not have the ability to recreate our lives. So that's why step 2 talks about came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And the confirmation of the idea presented in step 2 and the course of action is step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. So a lot of people give you the indication or the idea that we only work partial of these things. We only do the first 9, and then we do a bit of 10, and when convenient we do 11, and if it's not too much of an inconvenience in our lives, then we do 12. That's not the way it's laid out, right? That's ideas based on treatment center and self-centered. Sorry, I didn't mean to start off that fast. I meant to ease in on that, right? So this transition is we'll see that the first 5 steps really are designed on the over focus of self, right? To get rid of these blocks by incorporating the idea of prayer and these spiritual principles so we could start having our own experience. Then step 5 talks about we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. We looked at 6 and 7, then it re-emphasized what this whole thing is about. Right from the 4th step, it talked about in the fears, right? Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people around us, right? God, what's God's will for us? To play the role he assigned. So we see it's the shift from stage 1 recovery, the over-concentration on self, to something greater than ourselves, right? And in the promises, they talk about we'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. And in Bill's story, he talked about being in counsel with something greater than themselves, which was the shift, right? We've seen how self-centered he was before that. His friends there trying to carry a message to him to get him to participate in the saving of his own life. And Bill pushes a drink his way, right? I would say that's pretty self-centered, right? And his friend helped him overcome the obstacles within himself to see what was being offered, and he helped him through a course of action the 3rd time in treatment. So here, a lot of people, and I'm not going to say it out loud that the 12 and 12 really does a disservice to the information in the big book. I'm not going to mention that, okay? I'm going to keep that to myself and then kind of move on, right? Because there's different people that wrote that. If you kind of want to get into that later, you can get into that later. But I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. Like, I get right into the book. So they talk about this thought brings us to step 10, right? That we continue. Like, there's not a huge gap here of 2-3 months, right, between the 5th step and where we are. We've just read through it. It says, let's look at 8 and 9, because we need to be in counsel with something greater than ourselves, and we can't go unsupervised as we do our 9s. We need to have something that we could tap into to override the human condition. Because left to our own thinking, we're in trouble, right? And they talked about that in the 4th step, right? When harboring such feelings, right? And those of us who've done step 9, we're harboring a lot of feelings still, right? There's still a lot of confliction with what I think is going to happen and the outcome of what's going to happen. And then somebody says, well, what happens if you invite God into this? Who? Who? Right? I love people's shares where they talk about how great they're doing, and I'd like to thank God, right? Like, throw God in there as a cameo, right? Appearance into their lives, right? So here it's a continuation of their experience of those who put this together, right? And it talks about our next function is to grow and we have just entered the world of the spirit. You see where that is? That's a good place to start. This is the new instruction, and it's not new instruction, it's a continuation, right? It's a lack of power is our dilemma. Where we find this power, that's what this book is about. The whole thing is about our relationship with something greater than ourselves. The longer we wait to get into this, the more trouble we're going to be in. So anybody give you that ludicrous idea that you do 9s first and then you do 10, they don't know what they're talking about. And you can tell them I said that. Right? They have no idea what they're talking about, right? Because we're in dangerous territory to go through life unsupervised at this stage of the game, right? We need that access to that power that creates a change and enable us to overcome self to do things that we thought were impossible,
Yeah.
right? To rise above the human condition. Remember, they talked about that in the fourth step. They only thought they had lost their egotism and fear. They only thought they had humbled themselves, right? So we see that's the point of this exercise, is the humility of the recognition and I need something greater than ourselves. And that's where this kind of conversation is going here. So go ahead, Katie.
There we go. Okay. We have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness.
Right? That would make sense. What does step 11 say? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve, right, our conscious contact with the power greater, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. Bill talked about that in treatment. He was to right, check his newfound thinking with the new God consciousness within. He had something else he was talking to other than himself now. So the conversations are getting better. Right? We see when he was in counsel with himself, it was a bad conversation, right? It was a real conflict, right? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear.
Yeah, if this is a daily occurrence, you're missing something. Right? It says watch for these things. That shows how self starts taking over again. That's why we need to move further in the recipe that shows us how to stay connected. They used to call it being on the beam and off the beam. It's like your GPS, right? When your GPS is working, it lets you know when you're on track and it lets you know when you're getting off track. Right? And that's what we need to develop here, right? GPS, God's prayer system, to keep us on track. Right? Because we know what we are like unsupervised. Where did we get that idea? The fourth step. What does my life look like without God? Oh my God, this is what it looks like. And when you discuss it with another human being, right? Step 6 says, do you want to continue to look like that? No, I don't. Are you willing to get rid of all this? Yes, I am. 7 is the reconfirmation that I'm going to trust God with good and bad. I'm still not working on me or concentrating on me. I'm concentrating on my relationship, that he'll give me the power I need to overcome the things that are stumbling blocks in my life, where I could be to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and the people around me. And when I'm able to do that, I experience life on a level that is beyond anything I could have ever achieved on my own power and source. And Bill also talked about that. But his friend being rearranged, or something else happening in his life that Bill couldn't create on his own, right? But when he did what his friend did, he got the same kind of thing. That's why we got here. Go ahead.
Oh, God. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them.
Where do we learn that recipe? The fourth step. We learned how to master fear, master resentment, outgrow fear, right? Through acknowledgement, prayer, and redirecting. We learned about conduct, we learned about harms, and that's why on 75, when we finish the fourth step, it says, we hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has been blocking you. You've started this relationship. You're starting to get, right, a basis of, you're on the road, right? You're on the highway. You're looking through the front windshield now. You're not stuck in the rear view mirror.
Oh, God.
Right?
Yeah. It also says we may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but we now begin to have a spiritual experience. So we begin to experience this. How do you experience something? By doing it. We're not talking about it anymore. We're not thinking about it anymore. We're doing it. And it's telling us now we need to continue to watch and to do these things.
Because they're the blocks, right? When harboring such feelings. So we got the recipe here. It's the recipe, right? Go ahead.
Love it. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately, and we make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone.
And we know how we do that. If I harm somebody today, it takes 2 or 3 days of talking to people before I go make amends. Really, we don't like saying I'm sorry, right? Let's just ignore it. Hopefully they won't remember. Like, we're not really good at it, are we? Right? Because by the time we realize it's a problem, it's been happening for a little while. Go ahead.
That's the worst and the best part about this whole thing, though, is the more you do this, the more you can't deny that feeling that you know you're wrong. You try to shut it out, but that voice gets louder and louder. It's impossible to ignore it.
That's what I love about relationships. You know, when you get into conflict with your partner, you want to make the penance last longer than the acknowledgement of the wrong, right? I know I'm wrong, but I need to have them suffer a bit longer. Anybody? I'm alone in that, right? And you're fighting with yourself. No, I got to punish them a bit more, but you're punishing yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You realize what I'm really doing is punishing myself, right? So, yeah, anyways.
If we have harmed anyone, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
That's an overview. That's a summary of the whole process, right? That's their experience. They just told us their recipe, but they've got to teach us how they come about this part of the mind that they're able to incorporate that I haven't developed yet, because I'm just reading this. I just finished 6 and 7. I just read through 8 and 9. I looked at the promises based on their experience of having done the whole thing. Now I'm seeing their overview, right? The transition into where I need to go.
Yeah, very cool. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned.
By what time? By the time you get to step 10. Well, we're at step 10.
Yeah.
Right?
Still
No.
crazy.
You haven't done any amends yet. You haven't done anything. You haven't incorporated 11. You're not working with other people. You're getting a summary. You're looking at the roadmap, right, of their experience. Right? So they're doing like a documentary on their experience and say, wow, that sounds great. I'd like to have that experience, so I need to do what they did to get it. Right? It's what, we watch camping shows, right? And they talk about all these different things. We say, wow, we need to incorporate that the next time. Just because I'm watching it doesn't mean I'm experiencing it. Just because I'm reading it doesn't mean I'm experiencing. By the time we're halfway through the amends, this thought brings us to step 10, right? We'll be amazed before we're halfway through. In the spiritual appendix, what usually takes place in a few months, not by the time I get to step 10. Because if it happened at step 10, it would be a step 10 process. Yeah. What are the other steps for? Later when I'm well. No.
No.
Later. You can't afford later. Right?
We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed.
So, it's not like you go, oh, look, the problem's removed, because you can't see, feel, and touch it. It's a phenomenon. It's a malady that centers in the mind that has us doing things against our own will. Here they're saying somewhere along the line, this thing gets removed. We'll recover from the condition that was killing us in step 1, right? But we need to go further. This being right here, just reading it, isn't enough. I need to experience it somewhere along the line, halfway through my amends, as I'm developing and growing and understanding and effectiveness, as I'm working with other people, will suddenly realize that something has taken place. Just like our alcoholism, we'll be the last ones to know it's happening. Right? Everybody around us, we become more aware of it, right? They'll be experiencing the promise before we are. Right? If you're the only one experiencing the promises, I hate to break it to you, they ain't happening. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'm so amazed with me. How about the people around you? We're not talking about them right
There's
now.
no people around me, right?
That's right.
Everybody's answering their phone still.
Yeah. Call display. Well, we'll let that one go right to voicemail.
The sponsor's all they got. That's what they're calling you all day.
That's right. Yeah.
That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition.
There's the qualifier. So long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. I'm just entering the world of the spirit. I haven't learned the recipe on how to do that yet. To cultivate the growing understanding and effective. That recipe's coming. This is the transition into that. This is their overview on their experience, yes?
Yes. Yep. It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels.
So it's interesting. That's only been like one paragraph that we work on, that we get this idea that we work on ourselves. It doesn't say work on ourselves. It says watch for these things. Why we're watching them? Because we're instinct-based. The rest is all about our relationship and cultivating and developing, and the warning signs about feeling better, thinking we're getting better. Right?
Yeah. Those two are not the same thing.
No.
We are headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition.
So the daily reprieve happens after the process. Right? The problem gets removed, then we enter the neutrality. Help me with that word, right?
Neutrality.
There we go. There's the big word, right?
Neutrality.
I have no education whatsoever. It becomes evident sometimes. I make up my own words as we go along.
Is that the school of hard knocks?
That's right, a PhD in the School of Hard Knocks Street. So the daily reprieve, they're saying, happens after this change happens through my connection with something greater than myself. And I'll stay in a position of neutrality as long as I'm staying connected. Because if I don't stay connected, I don't know when this thing comes back again. I don't know how long I could coast for before the insanity of the first drink returns. Right? So this thing gets cast to one side. I'm no longer dealing with alcoholism. I'm dealing with the human condition. I need a solution for the human condition. Because if I don't find a solution for the human condition, somebody else within my mind knows the solution for the human condition that makes sense to me when I'm not spiritually fit. Yeah. And they call that insanity. Me and the Jack Nicholson. How many people watch Jack Nicholson, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
Oh, yeah.
You know the bus, where they're all on the bus, they're going fishing, right? They're all trying to act normal. Everybody knows they're not normal, right? So now we know where the cheese is, we know where the cracker is, and we know where the plate is to assemble these things. So at least they're all in the same parameter now, right? So we need to get them kind of lined up. Go ahead.
Okay. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities.
That's what they're saying, right? I haven't learned how to do that yet because I can't rely on me, really, to cultivate and develop this thing. I need instruction and kind of input on how do I do that, right? It's like electronic stuff. I need my kids to help me with electronic stuff. I'm not really good at it. Like my kids are great, and they laugh at me. I said, hey, remember, I taught you how to use a spoon, okay? So ease up here, okay? Go ahead.
How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly.
Underline that. These are thoughts. Who's talking? They are. They're giving us their game plan, right? Their success plan. They're giving us what they do for long-term sobriety. I haven't got all the information they got yet, do I? I've just entered this path. They're going to tell us how what it looks like developing it. Does that kind of make sense? Right? The apprenticeship, I've just started the spiritual apprenticeship. They've already been successful in the spiritual apprenticeship.
Yeah, morals.
Right?
Katie.
Spiritual apprenticeship. Okay, go ahead.
We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will.
So there, we just got our will back. right? Every day. It's not about turning it over anymore. It's about the proper use of will, seeking guidance and counsel on which way do I go with this. So every day we get the principle of step 3 is, do I want to go it alone, or do I want to bring spiritual principles into this? So the principles of the steps is, step 1 is, what is the problem? Whatever is happening in my life. Step 2 is, what is the spiritual solution to this? 3, do I want to seek counsel with God, or do I want to go it alone? A lot of us go it alone in different things because I don't know how God's going to do this, right? That's why the ABC is being convinced, right? That any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. Who convinces us of the need of God on a daily basis? Us.
Pain.
Pain. Who's doing this to me?
Right.
Grab a mirror. The one on the wall, not the table. Okay, go ahead.
Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power.
All knowledge and power. You notice it didn't say we only know the little. All knowledge, all power. You notice they haven't used that line yet. We only know a little. We have the instructions to create a change so profound that we recover from alcoholism. Even the doctor was kind of mystified on this thing that was happening with these people that he wasn't able to help. He watched this thing happen, right? The whole miracle taking place in his facility, and this recipe over the 9 years has been continuing, right? It's pretty wild. All knowledge and all power. So what they're saying is the only limitation to my experience with this thing will always be me. Yeah. Give you a warm, fuzzy feeling or what? Okay, go ahead.
Learn that lesson.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power.
And remember the idea was, if we perform His work well, He'll provide all that we need as a summary of the step 3 kind of conclusion, promise, or hope, right? Having a new employer, He'll provide all that we need, right? That was an idea in 3. Now we got access to that here. We got the keyway, right? The arch, that we can walk into the spiritual realm from a human experience into the spiritual experience, right? The spiritual realm. What we're building is a spiritual structure, not an instinct-based structure. We have 2 different experiences. When we have an instinct-based structure, we're fear-based, right? Anxiety, anticipation, projecting, and all that other stuff. We're mind readers. We're in constant conflict with ourselves. That means everybody around us. Now we're having a different experience. As I clean up the past, I'll get more into this, because I'm going to get into the recipe here of the whole conclusion of the purpose of this process up to this point. And here's the qualifier, the biggest word in the book. And what word is that? If. Here it is. Here's the pivoting point. You know what a pivoting point is, eh? When you lift something, it takes all your effort to get it to a certain distance, and then once it reaches a certain point, it creates its own momentum going the other way. Pivoting point. This is the pivoting point, where we move from self-reliant into God-reliant. It kind of gives us the shift, right, within inside of ourselves. The resistance has gotten so... the resistance is not as present. Yeah, it's not as present, right? We're open to continuing because we're experiencing some stuff. This is good stuff. I'd like some more of this, please. Okay, well, we're going to tell you how to get it.
If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun...
What directions? All the directions beforehand leading us to this point. Watch what it says here. It's crucial. People talk about step 10. They never talk about their relationship with God in step 10. They're talking about themselves. And that's not the purpose of step 10.
No.
Right? Anytime you start thinking it's about you, you're missing the point of this thing.
Totally. We've had enough of you.
Yeah.
They've had enough of you. We've all had enough of you.
Yeah. You better not show up alone. No, go ahead.
We have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us.
So again, reiterating step 5, reiterating what our next function is, and reiterating we must grow in understanding and effective. We've just begun. It's just happening. Right? It didn't say we finished all our 9s. We've been doing 10 every day. It's a continuation of looking at the roadmap. Right? We're kind of looking at the route we're going and the things that we need to incorporate to be successful in our travels, right?
Totally. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, but we must go further.
Must go further.
Yeah.
To stay where we are would mean disaster. Talked about that earlier. That was the warning. Resting on our laurels, our past achievements. They're saying, hey, we need to go further, right? Because this is not about 10. It's not about anything about our development, right? We must go. The sixth sense is how we started this thing deep down within, that we know it's present, but now we're developing it. It's kind of something that kind of, it becomes personal, and it kind of lets us know, it gives is that voice that's not our voice, but it's kind of present now. And it's hard to explain, but when you hear it, you can't deny it. Right? And that's it. It's like, hey, this thing. So I need to develop what? This sixth sense. Right? Which is the lifeline to a power greater than myself. Yes? Are we kind of cool on that? Okay, but we must go further. If you stay where you are, you're hooked. We got to go further.
And that means more action.
More action. You notice they didn't say that in step 10? Or 6 and 7? Because they don't want you participating. They want you to prepare for something greater than you to do the work within you that you can't do within you. You hear people say, oh, God doesn't do for us what I can't do for myself. Who determines that? Right? I can't create the life that I hear people talking about. I've tried. So here they're saying to rise above these things that they talked about in We Agnostics. They said God made these things possible. We are rised above our problems. And people who don't understand that just smile because it's something you have to experience. It doesn't make any sense. But once you experience it, you don't have to explain it anymore.
Totally. Cool stuff. Step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy on this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions.
So prayer, we see, is the interruption of my thinking and my instinct-based living. It creates a shift from the bondage and difficulties of self. Prayer is the overcoming of self. It's the shift, right? Does that kind of make sense? It's the shift, right? I need that, right? That's why in the 4th step it talks about in fear, we acknowledge something is happening, then we pray, and then we turn our thoughts to someone we can help. It's the interruption of the bondage and difficulties of self, right? Go ahead. So
it works if we have the proper attitude and work at it. It would be easy to be vague about this matter, yet we believe we can make some definite and valuable suggestions. When we retire at night...
Okay, what night?
Tonight.
Tonight. After I finish my 6 and 7, I got to start incorporating the daily disciplines that are outlined in 11. This is the only step that outlines a 24-hour clock. All the principles are in here. If you're doing 10, you're not doing 11. If you're doing 11, you're doing all the steps. If you're in constant conflict all the time, that's a good indication that you're not developing spiritually in 11. Right? That's treatment center ideas, the idea of you working on you. We already know that me working on me is not sufficient enough to overcome the illness that's kicking my ass. I need to participate on a spiritual level in the saving of my own life. Being convinced that any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. You may be able to fix you with you. I cannot. Right? When we retire at night, the night after we do our 5th, right? I'm going to kind of retire and review my day. Let's see what it says. Go ahead.
Were we resentful, selfish, dishonest, or afraid?
This is instinct showing up, right? Where did self take over? Right? I need to see that, right? I have the recipe, I'm able to look at it. That was the purpose of the fourth step on page 64. They talked about the inventory process, fact-facing process, to discover the obstacles or the stock and trade. So now I have the recipe, I'm able to do that through meditation. How do I meditate? Is I review, my conscience will tell me where I've missed the mark or where I've taken over. Anybody?
Totally.
And you notice it didn't say the last week, month, or year. Today. I'm living in today's battles, 24-hour clock. I made peace with my past, but I got to kind of clean it up still. And I'm trusting God with the future. So where do I need to kind of reside is in today. And I need to see where self has taken over today to rob me of life. Really, what's my biggest commodity is time. How much time did I waste? How much time did I invest in things that weren't happening? How many times? So I review that. Let's review this, right? As I'm doing my nines, you think any of this will come up? Where I was selfish, dishonest, or afraid? Or resentful as I'm doing my step nines?
Mm-hmm.
Or about to do step nines? You think self was trying to talk to me? Hey, psst, psst, don't listen to them. Trust me. No. Here I get to say, uh-oh, I showed up again unsupervised. Okay, go ahead.
Have we kept something to ourselves which should have been discussed with another person at once?
At once, yeah. We usually carry it for a couple days. Come on. Right now, I should have told somebody about this, right? Okay, I'm gonna have to wrap myself out here. Humility, I don't like it, because what's our biggest downfall is spiritual pride. I don't like to admit I'm still having these challenges as a human being, that I'm not inviting God in all areas of my life. I'm still self-sufficient over here. It's causing me problems, but I'm victimized by these things because lack of power is my dilemma to change it. So if I'm going to experience change, I need to incorporate my relationship more with God, then I'm not affected by these things. When my relationship depletes, then I'm more affected by these things. Right?
Yeah. Very cool. Were we thinking of ourselves most of the time?
That's why I love 10. Thinking about myself all the time. Go ahead.
Or were we thinking of what we could do for others? What we could pack into the stream of life? But we must be careful not to drift into worry, remorse, or morbid reflection.
Be careful that your mind doesn't take over and start beating you up again and talking shit to you. How many people's mind take over and they start talking shit to you? Well, that separates you from the Creator, right? Because God don't see you the way you're talking about you. So why talk to you about that way? Part of the amends process also is the way you talk to you and the way you interact with each other. Interrupting that morbid reflection or those things that you say. Anybody, how many people talk shit to themselves?
Occasionally.
Yeah, but as we develop, we need to bring God into it to interrupt that.
Absolutely.
Right? I need to be free of this stuff. Right?
I found practicing this more, you get to be more of an observer of it. You can see when it's happening instead of being pulled into it like I used to, and I would believe that shit that I'd say to myself. Instead, now when it starts, I can be like, oh, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, like you can see it.
Yeah, I need witness protection. God, you busy? I'm about to go through a bad neighborhood. I need some help, right? So when I'm spiritually fit, I notice that stuff doesn't happen in my mind. It just goes by. There's no attachment to it. But when I become spiritually depleted, that stuff sticks a little more, right? It sticks a little harder to separate from. So instead of fighting it, I got to bring God back into it, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's too troublesome, then I got to talk to another human being or go find somebody to work with, right? Okay, go ahead.
After making our review, We ask God's forgiveness and inquire what corrective measures should be taken.
That we don't carry it no more. Leave today's stuff in today and ask what corrective measures shall be taken. So I see the problem is it's just like if you keep hitting a certain curb in your car, what corrective measures shall be taken? Just move over a bit or park in a different parking spot. If you're going down a road to your house and it's all full of potholes and it's ruining your car, what corrective measures should be taken? Go down the other road. Whoa, but it's 2 minutes longer. It doesn't wreck your car. You know what I mean? Like when you see to go down this path, right, it is not very helpful. So, okay, what's another path or another way I can go through this, right?
On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives.
Amazing how it's talking about the power of the mind now, and how it entraps us. So our mind is like a maze. They're saying what the books teach us is to be an observer, not a participate. Oh, but right to produce. I'm going in the maze again. It's not good when I go in the maze, right? But it has a way of getting me in the maze. Sometimes I'm already walking down, so this place looks. Oh my God, I'm in the maze again. Right? Like sometimes we're deep in it, right? We're deep in it. Life's happening, and we're rewriting a Stephen King movie. Like front row popcorn is like, oh, this is painful. Nothing's happening. Right? Nothing going on. Right? Okay, God, can you get me out of this? Yes, I'm glad you asked. Yes, I can. Because he's not going to do nothing against your own will. Yeah. You have free will. You want to feel like that? It's every right. You can feel like that. Right? It's like I got some sponsors, pretty awesome. I phoned them and they said, sorry, I didn't want to answer the phone because I knew what you would have said, and I was really nurturing this depression I was in. It took me a long time to get into that really into that place of bondage, and I wasn't really willing to give it up. I said, well, don't let me interfere with that. Continue on. Right? Yeah. That we permit these things now. Right? Damn, it's like having a rock in your shoe and trying to keep it between your toes when you walk. You're still, no matter what, you're always concentrated on that rock in your shoe and your toe, right? I mean, like, it's crazy. Here it's saying, stop, take the rock out of your shoe. Whoa, but I only got another 20 feet to go. Right?
Crazy. Yeah. Okay. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. For after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives.
And that's what it's talking about on the page previous, right? Every day is a day we must carry God's vision into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. Now they're giving us a recipe on how to do that, to cultivate, develop. We're spending less time focusing on self and more shifting into a relationship with something greater than ourselves that gives us a different experience in the moment.
So cool. So cool. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here, we ask God for inspiration.
So they're saying, as you go through the day, you're going to show up, right? And you're going to have some anxiety, fear, or something. Here, in that moment, we stop, God, right? I acknowledge this is happening. Give me strength to do the next right thing. What's that? If I'm at work, be a worker. Right? If I'm driving, concentrate on what I'm doing. If it's time for bed, right, do meditative so I can fall asleep. Like here, like as the anxiety presents itself, they talked about fear was an evil and corroding thread. Once it gets a foothold, we go with it because we want to see the outcome. That's the outcome with you involved. The outcome is different with God involved. Do I want a new experience here? right? Or do I want to continue to make amends all the time for me showing up unsupervised? Because I don't have the power to change the course of action within me once it gets momentum. Once I'm driven by things, I'll have the intuitiveness say, you shouldn't be doing this. The other part will say, yeah, I should. Somebody's going to pay, right? And you don't know it's you, right? So all our suggestions are free, right? The only ones we pay for are the ones we don't utilize, right? So that's what they're saying here. As you go through the day, pause, right? When agitated or doubtful. So if you did that, would you have the problems in 10? 10 is saying that I'm not doing these things. That's why I'm in conflict with people, places, and things. If I'm taking corrective measures and watching out for these emotional and mental booby traps and watching out for that step 6 stuff that's trying to present itself by defining what today looks like based on my past, I'm in trouble. So if I stop, shift within inside of me, and outgrow this thing and asking for the direction to move in the right direction. And sometimes that's just keeping my mouth shut, which is not our strong suit, is it? Making friends now. Let's continue. So if I'm doing this, then I'm not having problems as outlined in 10, am I?
No.
The problem is just within me without involving anybody. But I like to involve people. Okay, go ahead. Why go through it alone? Who likes a resentment all by themselves? There's got to be someone I can involve. Okay, go ahead.
Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy.
My God, what would your life look like if you were able to do that every day?
What if you learned this as a child? I think about it all the time. How different our lives would have looked.
You hear people say they taught this in kindergarten, right? I was at that class. Still didn't get it. Go ahead.
Sneaking into a place of reasonableness. That was the point of all of it. We had to start listening.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while.
For a while. We're just getting the instructions of it. Right? I'm still getting over the idea of people say they pray in the morning and pray at night. Well, you go unsupervised all day? No wonder you're having problems. Right? If I only talk to my wife in the morning and at night, right? And you know what I mean? We're not having a really good relationship, are we? I'll leave that at that. Continue on. Can we snuggle? No. Reel it in, Katie. Reel it in. Oh, my God. Go ahead.
What used to be a hunch or occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind.
What becomes a working part of the mind? This recipe that we're learning on page 86 to 89. It becomes a working part of the mind. It's like spiritual martial arts.
Crazy.
Right? It just becomes a part of you. Like once you learn the basics or cook, anything you learn, it just comes like driving. You don't go, I'm going to practice brake now. I'm going to practice gas. It just becomes, you put it all together and it becomes a working part of the mind. Right? And you develop that. And the more you develop it, right? And if you have problems, you take corrective measures so you don't have that problem again. And if you don't pay attention, life has a way of letting you know that you're following outside the guidelines, right? What's the ticket in the mill? Right?
Yeah. Being still inexperienced.
This is the good one.
Having just made conscious contact with God.
Just made. Step 5, right? We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. See how they're putting this all together? There's no time lapse here, They're saying you can't afford to go unsupervised, right? You need this recipe as you do your nines. As you're doing your nines, you're going to have problems because there's the old way of looking at things, and then there's a new way of looking at things, and you're trying to fit yourself to be maximum serve to God and the people, a demonstration of these things, and there's going to be conflict at different times. The anxiety as you approach these people, places like self is the ego is going to be concerned with how you look. Right? The spiritual part of you is going to be concerned about making right with them. See the shift? Huge shift, giving them the ability to heal and make right, to move forward, to be free of these things, to answer the call when it's no caller ID, right? Just not be staring through the blinds every day. Every time you see a cop, to have anxiety, like to be free. Every time you see an ex, turn the corner, like, you know, like.
They'll probably do that to some of them.
Yeah. Right.
We might having just made conscious contact with God, it is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. We might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas.
Says every newcomer meeting the woman of his dreams in detox. This is God inspired. It has to be. Okay, and we'll leave that at that. Okay,
we'll leave it. Come for Tony's relationship talk at the Vancouver Roundup this weekend.
Yeah, bound to disturb somebody. Okay, go ahead.
Nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration.
The plane, like higher. Right? The spiritual experience that we're having as human beings, the spiritual, how we evolved from the instinct-based living, from the Neanderthal to the spiritual-based development that we've become as human beings, right? So we're not instinct-based all the time, fear and reactive and anticipate. We're having a different experience of not being in constant fear and anxiety. Right? Because we're trusting and relying on something other than ourselves. We have that, I'm going to be okay. Reminding myself many times, if God has created a platform for me to be sober when I was unable to get sober, and it created a shift in my attitude and outlook upon life, then what is left, what could possibly be left that God couldn't create a shift in? The only limitation to this thing will always be me. God's prepared to give us way more than we're able to receive. Ask anybody who's been sober a while, right? I still the limit to, right, the new employer, providing all that we need if we keep close to him. I've had the same employer for the last 37 years, but I've had many different jobs where I've been of service to other people.
Yeah, definitely. Nevertheless, we will find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We come to rely upon it. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that we be shown all through the day what our next step is to be.
Holy smokes! Did they give us the outline for the whole day, and we're still sitting at the kitchen table? Wow. Oh.
That we be given whatever we need to take care of such problems. We ask especially for freedom of self-will and are careful to make no request for ourselves only.
Oh, yeah, self-will. We know what that looks like. More, please. No, I'm fine. I'm good. God, my prayer in the beginning was, God, save me from myself and save others from me. Right.
We may ask for ourselves, however, if others will be helped. We are careful never to pray for our own selfish ends.
I even manipulate that stuff. I still bargain with God and try to negotiate. I said, God, if you give me the lottery, you know how many people I could help with that? Right. I'm the only one that ever kind of has those thoughts, though. I know that. Okay, go ahead.
Many of us have wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. You can easily see why. If circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join in morning meditation. If we belong to a religious denomination, which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend that also. If not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select and memorize a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing.
Like the Serenity Prayer. Why? It is because it keeps us out of the record groove of that hamster wheel. To be refocused over here, to calm the mind, the spirit, and the soul, to move in a new direction. So if my mind's always thinking about something that's not, I need something else to focus on. There's no void. I need to be concentrated on something, right? So meditation is like reading without interruption of your thought, right? And if you have interruption of your thought, go back and reread it again so you become disciplined, where there's no interference with your with your reading. You're concentrated on what you're doing. Same within a meeting. You're listening to what everybody's saying, not what you're thinking. You're not listening to you anymore. You're participating.
And there's so many resources nowadays to YouTube, like guided Ram Dass meditations, these spiritual teachers. That stuff that stuff lights me up. I love it. And it's not me talking. There may be helpful books. There are many helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained from one's priest, minister, or rabbi.
And this is where my sponsor didn't give me the 12 until he gave me Sermon on the Mount at this stage to read this. Right? Sermon on the Mount was a phenomenal book that they used back in the day. I recommend it at this stage of the game because it really talks about the power of the mind to think of in the spiritual development to overcome these things. It's a phenomenal book. Okay, go ahead.
Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated or doubtful.
What? If you're pausing, you're not getting in trouble. If you're hitting the gas, you're running into something, right?
Yeah. And when agitated or doubtful, and ask for the right thought or action.
Which is quite a bit for us, right? Especially if you're new and you're going to do your nines and you don't know where your money's coming in, you don't know what's this, about that, blah, zzz, you know, whoa, everybody sit down, including the people in the back. We're going to bring some prayer into this, right? We pause, relax, take it easy, pause. So we have two instincts, right? The fight or flight, actually there's three. There's the pause. Don't move. Don't do anything, right? You ever see those videos where the mouse is hiding up against something and the cat's looking for him? Pause. Don't move. Because if you move, you're lunch, right? That's kind of like this, right? Pause as we go through the day. Try it. Okay, go ahead.
And ask for the right thought or action. We constantly remind ourselves that we're no longer running the show.
Is that weekly or
all day?
All day. Oh, so this goes back with the overview in step 10, where it talks every day is a day we must carry God's will. How can I best serve thee? Thy will. These are thoughts that must go with us constantly. Now they're showing us how to do that. Oh, interesting. Didn't leave us hanging. Okay, go ahead.
Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We're then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves.
So imagine when you're doing your nines or at work or something that used to cripple you and you're incorporating this stuff. Now you're going to start having a different experience. Right now you see the benefit of this relationship. You experience something. You experience what we've been talking about. You experience what they were talking about in the step 9 overview of the promises. In the overview in step 10, you're starting to experience these things, which is a part of the collective experience, right?
Mm-hmm. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined.
Undisciplined how? Mentally.
We didn't need that one clarified. We know.
Mentally. But honestly, how am I undisciplined? Your mind's still running you. You should be running your mind. You should be determining how you think, how you feel, and all that other stuff. Before it was the other way around. You were a prisoner to you. Now you can step back and see how destructive this is. And say, you're re-narrating the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
You're rewriting the script within your mind to have a different experience through the writing and teaching of something greater than you. Through that relationship, you have a new narrator, which is the step 6, the sixth sense, this intuitiveness. But you need to cultivate that, right? What?
So we let God discipline us in the simple way we have just outlined.
What did they just outline? Step 11.
Yeah.
Didn't say have been outlining. We just outlined it. What did they just outline? Step 11. What's step 11? That's the walking around step. That's the morning, noon, and night. That's the air. It becomes a working part of the mind. This whole thing is about step 11 in my relationship with something greater than me. It's not about you working on you, talking to you. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. But this is not all. There is action and more action.
Every step talks about action, more action. Right? Working with others and practicing these principles. Not steps, practicing these principles. Anywhere did it say we do 10, 11, and 12 every day? No, we do 11. Right? And we're maximum service. We fit ourselves to be maximum service to God and the people around us, which gives us a life beyond anything you could ever imagine.
Cool. Faith without works is dead. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12.
And let's read, this is something we incorporate. We'll read this really fast. First paragraph. Go out.
Working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. This is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message.
This message of your relationship with something greater than yourself that created the change that you were unable to create. How you recovered from something and now you're going to go help others as people have helped you. Carry the same message. It's not carry these steps. Right? The third step says, right, we of thy power and thy love. All the way through here is about accessing this power that creates the change. The steps don't create the change without access to this power.
Really?
Right? The steps are not the solution. They are the vehicle. Right? When Ebby sat down at the table, he didn't talk about the steps he took. He talked about how he entered this relationship with something greater than himself that did the miraculous, did the impossible. Right? What did the doctor witness? This. He talked about, in each case, their ideas must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. Not in a routine of doing the steps every day. You can do the steps every day, still be locked in the bondage yourself.
Totally.
Right? The freedom step is the incorporation of leaven to have access to something greater than me, and the working with others is the freedom of the channel of that, right? The transmission, the opening of your spirit connected to someone else's spirit in a greater good of getting them to participate in the saving of their life as you did. Pretty remarkable stuff, right? So what ensures immunity from drinking? Working with other people. Get busy. Get busy. Anyways, live it long and prosperous. May the force be with you. I really enjoyed today. I didn't know what we were going to talk about. Well, here we go, right? You want to add anything? We're good. So let's before we ruin it, let's acknowledge the
Talks and ruins it.
That's it. Let's acknowledge something greater than ourselves in the transition. We'll do the third step prayer. God, for myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those out help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. We've just covered all those bases. May the force be with you. Live long and prosperous. And we're going to have a Q&A after here, so join in.